On the evening of November 23, 1985, EgyptAir Flight 648 touched down on a quiet runway in Malta. What followed would become one of the deadliest aircraft hijackings of the decade, not because of distance, not because of weather, but because of a chain of decisions made under pressure. This is the story of Flight 648. EgyptAir Flight 648 was a Boeing 737, a short-haul aircraft used regularly across the Mediterranean. On board were 92 passengers and 6 crew members. The flight departed Athens, bound for Cairo, a routine journey, no indication of trouble. 10 minutes after takeoff, everything changed. 3 men moved toward the cockpit. They were members of the Abu Nidal organization, a militant group responsible for multiple international attacks during the 1980s. They were armed with pistols, they carried grenades, they brought plastic explosives on board. As they forced their way forward, an Egyptian security officer confronted them. Gunfire erupted inside the aircraft. The exchange lasted seconds, but the consequences were immediate. The officer was killed. Several rounds struck the aircraft's fuselage. Cabin pressure dropped. The captain was forced into an emergency descent. From that moment on, Flight 648 was no longer under the crew's control. The hijackers demanded the aircraft be diverted. The first request was Cyprus. Landing permission was denied. Fuel was becoming a problem. With limited options remaining, the captain turned toward Malta. As the aircraft descended, negotiations began. Authorities on the ground tried to buy time. The hijackers demanded the release of prisoners held abroad. No agreement was reached. The aircraft landed at Lucca Airport just after nightfall. Inside the aircraft, the situation deteriorated. The hijackers collected passports. They searched for specific nationalities. Outside, cameras rolled. The aircraft sat fully visible on the runway. Negotiators worked without a clear resolution strategy. Communication was slow. Demands went unmet. As the standoff continued, the hijackers began killing passengers at intervals. Bodies were left on the tarmac as a signal. The message was clear. Time was running out. Egyptian authorities made a decision. A special operations unit would storm the aircraft. The commandos arrived disguised as airport service crew. They approached from the front of the plane. The plan relied on speed and surprise, but conditions inside the aircraft were unknown. As the team entered, tear gas was deployed. Within moments, grenades detonated. Fire spread rapidly through the cabin. Visibility collapsed. The interior filled with smoke. What followed was chaos. Passengers near the rear escaped through emergency exits. Others did not make it out. Within minutes, the aircraft was engulfed. When the fire was extinguished, the scale of the disaster became clear. 60 people were dead, 56 passengers, 2 crew members, 2 hijackers, 35 survived. Many suffered severe injuries. One hijacker, Omar Razak, was captured alive. Investigations followed. Maltese authorities criticized the assault. They cited excessive force and poor coordination. The use of tear gas in an enclosed space filled with explosives was heavily questioned. Legal cases stretched on for decades. Razak was convicted in Malta, then later in the United States. EgyptAir Flight 648 did not end because of a single action. It ended because of a sequence of decisions made with incomplete information under extreme pressure. It remains a case studied by aviation and security experts, not for what went right, but for what went wrong. On a quiet runway in Malta, a routine flight became a permanent lesson.